guys, if you don't know me already, my name is Michelle Vinikurov. I am the blogger of the World of Autism. That is my blog series. You can check it out every week. That I usually have new posts that are coming out full of guest interviews, personal experiences of my own living with autism, other people's experiences, and from individuals with autism, from professionals to families. So that's where my blog comes in with that. And coming on for my next guest on my guest interview series here, we have David. How you doing, David?
I am well. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. So we're gonna start it off here by telling about yourself, with your when you got diagnosed with autism and everything, just to tell your background story of it.
Sure. So, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4 years old. I noticed my behavioral challenges apparently at a security checkpoint at Benazir Bhutto Airport, an old airport in Islamabad, Pakistan, because my father grew up in Pakistan. I usually traveled there every other year. So on the way back to Los Angeles in the United States, a security guard wanted to look in my suitcase, and I refused to let that happen because I was not comfortable with people looking at my property. So my parents had to advocate for me, and they had to tell the security office, the travel agents, my learning differences and that I was young, I was still learning. So after that happened, we safely got back to the United States. And then following our trip, I went to the pediatrics to be evaluated, and I was going to be tested on different styles, from applied behavioral analysis to exploring the arts in a preschool that I was enrolled in until my parents found a good school for me, which was a multidisciplinary special needs school. And the other school that I enrolled in that explores the arts, I was a part of a dance class and then transitioned to a theater project that has really, really boosted my self-esteem in so many ways, even though I did enjoy my athletics a lot more than being on the theater stage.
Oh, interesting. That when you were saying about with more of with athletics and stuff, that was like me too. That was more of my growing up as well, and where you were saying about with being in a you said multidisciplinary school?
Yes, I went to a multidisciplinary school called Village Glen West that is administered by the health group. It is a large nonprofit to serve students with learning differences at different learning levels around the Los Angeles area.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting because um just a little bit with me and stuff, that kind of similar path in a way where I started off where I was more in a specialized school that was it was a specialized school that it's not public, so it's pretty much follows what private schools do of more of, and how they serve the people. But anyway, it's this school was specialized because they were teaching the students with disabilities that specifically with autism and with multiple disabilities. So that was how I started off there. But still, that's a very interesting story. Very interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
now to move on here about with how you're at today. I saw on your LinkedIn how you call yourself a global autism advocate. How did
Mm-hmm.
of you? How? How
Uh,
what inspired you about that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear that part.
How what inspired you to become a global autism advocate? Because I saw on your LinkedIn that you do a lot with you've been through all over the world pretty much.
I have been traveling the world all my life, ever since I was 2 months old. I grew up in a family that embodies a strong passion for global citizenship. I have traveled on numerous family vacations. By the time I was 13, I started traveling independently, and it was to my dream city, New York City, where I am living right now. I traveled out of the country independently for the first time when I was 16 years old, and that was on a 1 month trip to Israel with some fellow friends from summer camp, with from a summer camp located in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, 2 hour drive away from Philadelphia and New York City. So, and from that moment, I've been traveling independently ever since. And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, spreading autism awareness in many different ways, even speaking in large audiences about it or in any other kind of discipline, and kind of going back to a new generation. I was not around. My dad was a flight attendant with Pakistan International Airlines when he was around 19 or 20 years old, and that was his first time ever traveling outside of Pakistan. And with that kind of background, it gave me the idea to just try um, a different kind of global awareness passion. And the majority of my father's side of the family does work with the Pakistan embassy, other governmental organizations, and agencies of the United Nations.
Wow, that's awesome. That is really cool that your dad does that, and for everything, thank you about with that for all you do and like what your dad does and stuff because
Well, my dad is not doing that right now. At the moment, my dad is a certified financial consultant working in the finance field and helping clients use money prudently, how to save it, and how to use it wisely.
right. But still, it's that's still great that he does that too, and also that where you were saying about how we're in the New York area. Actually, I'm in New Jersey. That's where I'm from. So I'm like the next state over you. So
I would very much hope we meet in person because that would absolutely mean a lot more. I really cannot travel anywhere far distance except taking a train into New Jersey or even taking a day trip into Connecticut. And talking about that, I am going on a 2 day getaway up to New Paltz. But if I have to travel anywhere right now, it's going to be by car ride, even if I know people who are traveling by plane. The airports are not very crowded. Very few people are going to be in the aircraft. And I am not even surprised about how people are managing it with the quarantine perpetuating.
mm, right. But still, that'd be cool. That'd be cool to do that one day and stuff. And also you were said I it's really interesting about what you were saying about how with you like growing up traveling and stuff and that kind of like rooted for you that you're like, you know what, I gotta share about keep educating like all over the world, not all over the world, not just like in the country and stuff. So that is very fascinating to know. That's very cool.
I got more places to go to that I haven't been to. And right now, the top countries on my bucket list are Egypt, Finland, Japan, Russia, and Ukraine.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So, what kind of speeches have you done for like for places?
Well, I have given speeches at events with a company called Autism Speaks, which is technically a nationwide or worldwide company about autism awareness. I have also given my autism speech that I actually wrote before I had my bar mitzvah at multiple schools around Los Angeles. And my parents and family were in the audience. And the first time I ever did it, in another state and without my parents in the audience was my first year at the summer camp that I referred to earlier. It's Camp Havaya in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. I also gave a TED talk there while I was a camper. And then one day when I was a staff member working there, I was given the opportunity from the camp directors to share my story about it. And that was right after graduating high school and before starting college. And then during my college career, I have spoken in multiple panels anywhere around the Northeast. And even traveling abroad, it wasn't necessarily public speaking, but I was helping educational and residential directors be aware of my differences and showing that I have the determination to succeed in any kind of education system, no matter how different it may be. And that was my biggest and proudest accomplishment in bringing autism awareness around the world during my college career. And now that it has come to an end, I want to continue the same thing with a different style of it.
What what do you mean like different style? Like what are you thinking about in terms?
Well, good question. To clarify that further, I'm thinking about speaking in large audiences about autism, doing little presentations, or even traveling with an autism company that wants to help, undeveloped countries that have really struggled to provide those accommodations, even rich countries that have not really considered those accommodations either. And that will be a much bigger challenge than just going to a place, doing a presentation, and then speaking about it. The bigger project of it would be to travel with an autism organization that has connected with other businesses for autism outside of the United States.
That's absolutely true. That there are places that we use like underdeveloped countries that don't have as much resources and everything. So you brought a very valid point there that it would be good to have like a lot of autism organizations or even any disability organizations too to work together and to help in those countries. Those are really good points.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point right there. Because I haven't really heard too much of like where people were approaching with that. I don't know if you know this there's this organization I think I know there's the Autism Global Project. I know.
Yes, I do know the Global Autism Project. I connected with them earlier this year. I did my first podcast with them. I support their uh, I support the goals of the company. I admire what they do. My next plan to even be more involved with them would be to travel on a skills course venture to a country that I desire and that I think I will succeed with, even with other travelers who may not be a part of the Global Autism Project, but do embody the same goals of the organization. And there have been so many volunteers who have done so well and have earned full-time jobs with it.
Mhm.
And if I ever earn a good job with that, plus the benefits of it, then I would very much enjoy it because it would be so much traveling, and yet I'm doing so much writing in my downtime that I believe will enable me to keep traveling more and speaking at different events about what I am bringing out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And this actually brings me to a point now where one of the biggest topics when it comes to for individuals with autism, employment. Why? Because that was always a big thing that in the community that was always a struggle. Because trying to find something like that you enjoy, and also that at the same time that you're making money that's like financially like secured and everything for the future and stuff. So um I actually am going to ask you now a little bit about with that because is what is that something you like with the speak with all your speaking and everything? Is that something like you want to do full time? Like you know?
I'm a little misunderstood with your question.
So I mean that like um oh, let me try to word it right. So you know how there's people who do like keynote speaking like full time
Mm-hmm.
stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Would that be something like you would like do like as like a full time career?
Oh, absolutely. That's like my career goal. That is my dream goal. I want to be a full-time keynote speaker traveling the world. And now that you mention it, there is a person on the autism spectrum living in New Jersey who travels the world doing full-time speaking, and apparently he got his PhD the same year I got my bachelor's. His name is Kerry Magro.
Yeah. I do know him because the funny story with that how I know him is because he and it's all connecting back to what you were saying with Autism Speaks because I grew up with that organization for years and stuff because I did a walk for them when I was 9, and then Carrie Magro published my story on Autism Speaks back in 2014, and I was only in my sophomore year of high school. I'm 22 years old now, so yeah, so I I have a connection with Dr. Carrie Magro and with Autism Speaks and stuff because of with everything going on and stuff. So I just what that is awesome how you want to do keynote speaking as a full time. Do you what do you do currently like working? What you
So I work part-time for the employment and business department of a large nonprofit that is New York City based. It is called AHRC.
Mhm.
I coach neurodiverse adults in a variety of different learning styles in building fulfilling lives. I have been with the company since February. Before quarantine began, we do a lot of things beyond sitting in the office. We meet in a location, we travel around the city to do community based stuff and observe the talents of the people we are supporting, giving them feedback about what they are struggling with, how they can practice and overcome those weaknesses. But since quarantine came and how it really put a huge burden on us, I was actually furloughed for a month or two until my supervisor said that they wanted the staff to increase, so that right around Memorial Day, which is usually my birthday weekend, I got back to work, and we have been doing a lot of things virtually and feeling comfortable with the job. I shadowed some of my colleagues, learning about how they lead the groups and what they do. And now I am on a new phase of leading virtual activities for at least half a portion of the time until I feel comfortable with doing it fully. We do have an action plan to get back into community based stuff, but anything can happen with it. It is unpredictable, it is not guaranteed, and the plans can change with that. And it's going to be done slowly, little by little. And if anything interrupts, we will flow with it and keep keep remaining with our virtual activities.
Right. That's a lot of compromises is happening right now, like everywhere. No matter if you're working for a company or for schools and stuff, like there's so much to compromise, and a lot of things are unfortunately they're still virtual, but just we gotta just keep on supporting like just everybody to support each other and then we just get through this because I know it's still like not a easy time and it just but are you the most important thing is that like did you just start your job like you just got
Well, let me get back to that. I was hired by the company in February,
okay
and then I worked for it. I was not dismissed or anything. I was furloughed when COVID hit, which means
okay
that you are not fired, but you're not doing anything at the moment until your supervisor contacts you about it. So
Okay.
then in the end of May, I got back to working with the company, and I still am. And I very much enjoy the job because I am not just sitting in front of a computer recording
Yeah.
numbers or just reading data, because that is not the kind of thing that I will enjoy. I want to do stuff that goes out of the office and that really goes beyond many aspects, and like traveling and not really relocating but going to different places. And emphasizing that further, in the end of February I went on a day trip to Albany with some coworkers and the people I support to a disability rights conference that happened in the main offices in the capital of New York. And down in Coney Island at some other Italian conference place,
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's Italian, but it is a conference room by an Italian restaurant. There was also there was an additional disability rights conference where we listened to some parents speak about their children who are on the autism spectrum. We listened to plans of increasing disability rights from the state of New York, other embassies that strive for the same goals that the company I work for does. And I have actually been connected with AHRC during my college career because during my upper sophomore and senior year, I participated in an employment readiness workshop in the comprehensive support structure at Pace University called the OASIS program. We had meetings at least every Friday for 12 weeks. So when I first started, it was 12 consecutive weeks in the spring semester, not including national holidays or spring vacation or other things that happen. But now that changed to having 6 weeks in the fall and 6 weeks in the spring. We would be off duty, but the sessions would not occur if we have to prepare for final exams, etc. In these workshops, we learn how to we learn the communications, how to communicate in the workplace, workplace behavior, drafting resumes, writing cover letters, mock interviews. It's a general learning setting about getting ready for the workplace. It's employment readiness with the goal to have students from the comprehensive support program have an internship before graduating college, even proceeding to an entry level job, which can also happen before. But the actual goal is to have them get to an entry level job after graduating college, which does not happen right away. So students who want to be in those workshops have to be, I think, junior or senior year or above.
Mhm.
I could be wrong about that because I was an upper sophomore when I first started. I
Okay.
haven't looked at the rules about it, but I do think that it is reserved for juniors and seniors at the moment. But again, I could be wrong. And freshman year is not really for those students because that is meant to be the year for them to feel comfortable in the college environment and get used to it.
Wow, that's interesting how your university had like a 12-week thing for employment readiness. I think that all colleges should have either in their like career development centers or in within the colleges to have those kind of resources because that's going to help a lot of people in terms of employment and getting to where they want to be in their careers. So that is a very good point that you mentioned right there. So thank you for sharing that.
And even if I did get that resource, it was so helpful and enjoyable overall. I still went to the career services department because I learned a lot from them as well. And even to the point that I cannot always meet with my career slash internship counselor all
Mhm.
the time. I have to be able to utilize other resources where I can update my resume, and learn other strategies for cover letters, and also persevering with the fact that rejections happen. It's frustrating,
Mhm.
it eats at you, but to have a little kind of celebration or a way to get through it is how you learn to process it and how you have to stay motivated to follow the same procedures that you have done before. And I've applied for other things out of the job. I've been rejected like 11 or 12 times, and it can still
Same.
happen.
Me too.
It is possible, and there are always reasons for it, and there are fair ones too.
Yeah, exactly. And I went through similar experiences to you when it comes to that because I went to my career center, the my career advisor like for when I was in college and stuff. And because of my experiences with going to the career center and everything for like resume writing, interview practices and stuff, that really helps me a lot in terms of like understanding like how the process goes and everything, and just like getting to where like now today I work in the school district and I just graduated from college last year. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So, um, I got into a school district like within like not even half a year afterwards. So definitely build on the experiences and everything too. That's really important to get yourself out there and everything because actions speak a lot louder than words. It always does. Always does.
And to be honest, if I did not participate in the employment readiness workshops that were provided by the OASIS program, then my perspectives about the workplace would not be the way they are right now. And it really, really changed my views in so many ways.
Mhm.
And even if it may be boring, some of it will be entertaining. It's really how you learn from what you are being, what is facilitated to you. And it's not just our internship career counselor leading it. We gather employment skills coordinators from AHRC, the company I work for, to help lead the workshops that are in session. And generally during the workshops, we have 2 sessions of mock interviews where we have to dress with a tie or with a suit. But except when we are in an office having meetings, that is generally not required. But for the mock interviews, it is. And then we have at least 1 or 2 interview rounds where we have the resume in front of us, and then the mock interviewer has our cover letter as well, and then we practice it little by little. They evaluate us in a different way than a regular interviewer, and they send those evaluations to the people who are training us, and that will show how well we did and what did not go well, and how we have to, you know, be aware of these things when we get into the real interview. And this is how we practice, and
Yeah,
practice
absolutely.
makes perfect. And that is what I wanted to make out of the workshops I participated in. I wanted to improve my interviewing skills.
That was exactly for me too because I know interviewing can be very hard like in terms of like even when I like with me like asking you a question like I ended up being a little worried myself, and that's what that was always happening when it came to the interviews that I would do and stuff where like they end up being worried from like the interviewers. So that happens. That really does happen. But practice, absolutely. Practice is what it takes too. Like doing practicing like whatever be like in for example like um in front of like friends or something or parents or whatever, like or even just with someone from the career center at the college, that that really does help too. So
Mm-hmm.
before I wrap it up, um is there any advice that you want to give to others who live with autism or like any professionals or to families, like what are some advice that you could give to them today?
That's a good question. This is going to be a hard one to answer in a concise way. So I need a bit of time to process it.
Mm-hmm.
For autistic adults, find a way to get your voice out there by searching for uh, some advocacy organization, understand it and see if you like the philosophies of it. And then if you get involved with it, definitely start connecting with it and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a more appropriate step than just trying to, speak at another event that can come at any time. For educators, not just teachers, general educators, be open and aware of the learning differences from other students. And if you have any questions, they will be the students themselves will be happy to answer. And if the students have any questions for you, then be ready to answer. And do be aware of the fact that if they ask a question redundantly, it is not for the sake of it, it is how they learn. On another point that I would like to add, this is so crucial to me, and I can definitely get agitated if this problem does not if this problem does not get resolved. That is direct communication. If you want someone on the spectrum to know what you expect from them, you have to communicate directly with them. Expecting them to read between the lines will cause confusion and misunderstanding. And I don't say that to scare anybody, but blunt communication is one of the only ways to get the autistic individual out there, whether they can talk, nonverbal, or any other kind of different learning style that they have. So moving on to the parents as well. One of my favorite quotes from Carrie Magro, who I mentioned earlier, is that autism does not come from an instruction guide. It comes from a family who will never give up. So, with that, I want to say to the parents, when you take your autistic child to be evaluated, make sure you read the results carefully and understand what could go well, what could not go well. And then once you start exploring more environments, it will be much easier for you to determine where your child can succeed. It takes a lot of searching. It is a rigorous process, but if you are very, very disciplined about it, it will help you manage your way in finding the right educational setting for your child. And once again, it gets harder as the child grows, especially when they may or may not know what they want to do. And it's ensuring that they are being supported in the best possible way. It takes a lot. And if you are really willing to work your butt off of it, then you will accomplish so much, even for your child as well. And that's really all I have to say about the advice for anyone out there who wishes to help people with autism or the autistic person self-advocating for themselves.
Wow, that's excellent advice. That really is excellent advice because it's all in a way it's actually all interconnected where in terms of like support, communication, that's like in any kind of like perspective that's what we all need to like do more of because that's what we need in the world. It really is.
I also want to bring this out. When I am traveling the world, it not just requires, reading signs in an airport or a public transportation system.
Mhm.
It requires some of my favorite words: flexibility, patience, adaptation, being out of your comfort zone, and having an open mind. And there have been times when, I was able to communicate with others, and there were times when it became the exact opposite of it. It happens, it eats at me, but all I can do is learn from how they communicate, what is a part of their cultural heritage. And there were definitely some people I encountered who sort of did not communicate as directly as I would like to,
Mm.
but with the kind of support and assistance that I had from other people who were very good and a lot who I felt were a lot better with my learning needs, were able to understand that in a better way. And sometimes you will, when you're traveling out there, communication is going to be different, and you will have to accept and understand the fact that you will run into people who are not comfortable with blunt communication. That is a part of their cultural heritage. You cannot argue about it. You cannot, do anything miserable about it. If you are reluctant to understand that, then you are not doing your part to adapt to the landscape that you chose to explore at.
You have a very good point there. Very good point there. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on to share your story and everything. So thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, David.
Of course, anytime.